Hey everyone, Joey here, and with the announcement of the Anbernic RGSP, which I am insanely excited for. It's everything I've been asking for 2 years now. I thought it would be good to revisit the Miyoo Mini Flip, which is this little clamshell right here, and see how it's been over the last 9 months and where we're at today, and if it's a good recommendation in comparison to the Anbernic RGSP or maybe not at all. The Miyoo Mini Flip during my review was hard to recommend as it wasn't a perfect device and it was kind of expensive. But I loved how small it was, I loved how cute it is, and that it was a pocketable small handheld that we just don't see anymore. Well, until the Anbernic RGSP, but you know what I mean. We don't get a lot of these small devices. This is kind of unique in what it does. But before we talk more about the Miyoo Mini Flip, let's talk about today's video sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay's shared projects is awesome. You have people that have created awesome projects, and they share the entire builds and designs with you. Plus, PCBWay makes it easy to add everything to cart and then order it. Find the project that you want to build, choose Add to Cart on the right, and then check out. It's that easy. Why guess on parts that you need when you have shared projects with everything that you need? PCBWay, the easy way to build your PCB projects, linked in the description. Let's get back to the Miyoo Mini Flip. Now, price-wise, I haven't seen much shifting over the last 9 months. It is still a bit on the higher side for what you are actually getting here. And while it is smaller than the upcoming Anbernic RGSP, it is unique in its size and its range. So you can allow some higher pricing because of that, because it is one of its kind, even if I do think it is on the higher end. Now, as you would probably expect, Miyoo hasn't released a single firmware update to the Miyoo Mini Flip since its release. So the firmware is still from October, and that is actually unfortunate because the software wasn't perfect out of the box and still isn't. That being said, in my review, we did test out Onion OS, which doesn't have full support for the Flip. It's missing the lid support and a few other things. There is a mod that you can enable that brings in lid closing support, but this all gets kind of messy. Instead, I think the best custom firmware for the Miyoo Mini Flip is actually Allium. Alium is super clean. It's really minimal in how it operates. It's got the MinUI type vibe for anybody familiar with MinUI. It has full support for everything Miyoo Mini Flip, and it just works out of the box. This is definitely my favorite custom firmware on the Miyoo Mini Flip, and it is a perfect fit for this handheld when you just want to open to a game that you are playing easily. It also has the lid closing support, which you definitely want, and it's a super easy to use interface and easy to use settings and so on. Installation is actually really easy as well. Just grab your favorite branded SD card. A 128GB would be more than enough for what the Flip plays. Connect that to your PC using a USB SD card reader. Then install Rufus from the Rufus website. The portable version is just fine. We use this to format the SD card. Then go ahead and open Rufus, make sure your SD card is chosen from the dropdown, change boot selection to non-bootable, change file selection to FAT32 or large FAT32. You can give the volume a name if you want and then push start. This is going to wipe the SD card and format it for us. Then head to the Alium GitHub linked in the description, download the Alium named zip from whatever the latest release is, and then right-click it, extract all, and choose your newly formatted SD card as the location. When it's done, go ahead and jump into the ROMs folder. Now, this is empty by default. Allium lets you create any folders for any systems with any name that you want. So if you wanted your NES folder to be called Joey Sucks NES, it can be that if you wanted it. It just searches the folders for any NES games. That being said, it is easier to just create the names that tell you what the system is. And so you can see on screen what mine looks like if you want to copy, but I would personally suggest that you go by Allium's wiki, which has a ROM folder chart. And you should copy that because the names do matter, as you're going to see in a little bit. If you plan to play any consoles that need BIOS files, those would go into the BIOS folder on the root of the SD card. If you're confused about what BIOS files are, only CD-based systems require them, and I'll leave a link in the description to my website where I go over what BIOS files are needed for what systems. When you're finally done with all of that, safely eject the SD card and pop it into your turned off flip and turn it on. Let it do its install. It's going to say installing RetroArch and then installing RetroArch core overrides, and then you'll load right into Allium's home screen. If you pop over to the Games tab, you're going to see all of the systems for games that you've added in, and it's all in a nice list. And you're going to see that mine aren't alphabetized. I didn't do this on purpose, but by not using Allium's recommended folder chart naming for folders, it organized the ones that I did do it for by accident, and then the others are separated. So you would want to use their chart if you want everything to be all nice and pretty and alphabetized. If you head into any folder, you're going to see all of your games, and if you push select, you have a few options for things that you can do per game. But let's head over to settings next and connect to Wi-Fi if you want. It is useful for what Allium needs. Then you can always check for updates through System Update for easier updating now that we have Wi-Fi. You can also adjust the power and how the lid works in Power. You can play around with the screen settings in Display. You can change the theme in Theme as well as other settings. I like to enable battery percentage and Wi-Fi icon. If we head over to Apps, we have Activity Tracker, and you're going to see whatever games that you've played and for how long. This is super useful. Better Wi-Fi is a bit weird, but it gives you a lot more control over your Wi-Fi options in case you need it. Then you have other apps like eBook Reader, File Explorer, and so on. If you want to use retro achievements, jump into RetroArch, then Settings, and then Achievements. Log in with your retro achievements information, then back to the main menu, Configuration File, save current configuration to save your changes. Otherwise, let's finally launch a game by just picking a game from the games list. If you push the menu button in the middle, you're going to get options for saving and loading states, reset and quit, but let's jump into settings. This is going to open RetroArch's settings, and you can adjust whatever you need for this game in RetroArch here, because it all uses RetroArch as the backend. As far as hotkeys go, here's what you have available. Menu plus R2 is fast forward, menu plus volume is brightness, menu plus X is FPS, menu plus start adjusts the screen with integer scaling and so on. Menu plus power takes a screenshot. Lastly, tapping power puts the device into sleep mode, which you don't want to use often because it does drain battery. Basically, use this if you plan on picking up the device within a few minutes. Otherwise, push and hold power to have it quick save and then turn off. And then power back on to be right back where you were. It is pretty quick too, so it's not a negative at all. That being said, after all of this, all of my same issues from my review still kind of apply with the Miyoo Mini Flip. None of it is really solved here. It can get a little warm. There is that Wi-Fi speaker interference noise that happens quite often. The charging causes that same noise, and I don't know what happens there. There's like a little hum as well as these weird beeps and all of that. All of these are things that Allium doesn't fix because Allium is just on top of the Miyoo operating system. So there is no fix for those. Those are things that I wish probably didn't exist and would make the device a lot better. But all of the same issues and things like that are still here. You just have a better interface to use the Miyoo Mini Flip with. So I think at the end of the day, it is not a perfect device by any stretch of the imagination, but it is unique. It's kind of cute, it's small, it's compact, it's got all of that going for it, but there's a whole lot of issues. So it makes it very hard to recommend wholly, but if you do have one, you should check out Allium. Personally, I am waiting for the RGSP. That is going to be my probably go-to from what I've seen so far. We'll see. Anbernic has a history of doing things. But I'm very curious to know, are you excited about the RGSP if you have a Miyoo Mini Flip? If not, why not? If so, why? They are fighting in the same range. The RGSP is going to be a little bit bigger, but I only need one. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Let me know in the comments what you think. Don't forget to like and sub to help the channel grow. Come join me on the Discord to talk all about retro gaming, and hope you all have a good one.